Okay. Is everybody ready? Need another minute, or are you good? You guys okay? Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Steve Nevy, the Assistant Secretary for Washington State Ferries. I'm excited to be here today with my colleagues from Washington State Ferries to celebrate a major milestone in our path to adding ferries to our fleet, the largest ferry system in the United States. I want to specifically thank our Transportation Committee chairs, Senator Leas and Representative Fye, who are with us today, along with Governor Jay Inslee for their outstanding leadership. Representative Fye was the prime sponsor of House Bill 1846 in 2023, a bold initiative that is a break from the status quo and allows us to go out for competitive bidding across the country. Late last week, we kicked off our nationwide competition for shipbuilders to build 5 new hybrid electric ferries. This is an exciting milestone for the program, and my colleague Matt Van Ruden will share more details with you. Adding new vessels to our fleet is a key part of a multi-pronged approach to restoring service levels. In addition to strengthening our workforce, we share the public's urgency in bringing these new vessels on board as quickly as possible. Ship design and construction is a complex and lengthy process, and we do appreciate the public's patience while we work to get this right. What does this contracting approach mean for delivery? It speeds up the delivery of the ferries so that we can receive 2 vessels in 2028, 2 in 2029, and the final of these 5 vessels in 2030. Some people have suggested that it would be faster to build diesel-only ferries instead. This is not the case. This hybrid electric plan and design is the quickest path to new vessels. We know that we need vessels now and are confident that this is the fastest path to restoring our fleet to its full capacity. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Matt Van Ruden to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Hello, my name is Matt Van Ruden. I'm the Washington State Ferries System Electrification Program Administrator. Like Steve, I have lived and breathed maritime for my entire career. I have 42 years of maritime experience, including 9 years here at Washington State Ferries, 27 years career U.S. Coast Guard, and 4 years in the shipbuilding industry. The flexibility provided by House Bill 1846 is just a fantastic development for our delivery of new ferries. With the option to hire shipbuilders from around the country, we anticipate strong competition from throughout the country. More than 10 shipyards have expressed interest. What that means to taxpayers is we'll have good competition and the lowest possible price. For shipyards to bid, however, they must pass a rigorous pre-qualification process. There's a WSDOT standard pre-qualification, which assesses the financial strength of each of the bidders. And then there's a special pre-qualification, which will assess their ability to build these vessels. That pre-qualification process will require prospective bidders to develop a build strategy and describe how they'll leverage their facilities to build these vessels. We'll review that submittal, and then we'll conduct visits to each of the potential shipyards to make sure that they are capable of building the vessels. Later this year, we'll release Part 2 of our invitation for bid, which will consist of the technical package. That will provide all the details needed for the shipyards to develop their price. We expect the process to conclude in early 2025 when we award either 1 or 2 contracts. Each contract will have 2 definite vessels with 1 pre-priced option and 2 additional options. So we have multiple pathways to get to our goal of 5 vessels, awarding 1 or 2 contracts. The lucky bidders who are awarded contracts will need about 1 year to do their detailed design and production engineering, and about 2 years to build the first vessel. Depending on the bid prices, we expect to take delivery of the first 2 vessels in 2028, the next 2 in 2029, and the 5th vessel in 2030. On the design side, we have a very strong project team. It's led by Seattle-based naval architecture firm Elliott Bay Design Group, and the propulsion integrator partner is ABB. Both have extensive experience in designing hybrid electric ferries. We also have involved representatives from our Washington State Ferries fleet, both the engine room and the deck, to make sure that the vessel will work well for them. Now, what can passengers expect when they are riding these vessels? Well, for one, we lengthen the vessel over the original design to make it slightly longer and reduce the powering requirements. And the good news is that results in a capacity of over 160 vehicles. Passenger capacity will remain at 1,500 passengers. Our ferry customers and marine mammals alike will benefit from quieter ferries that also have less vibration. We're introducing outdoor lounges on both ends of the vessel, so there'll be about 49 seats on each end for the customers who like the wind in their face and to feel the full Puget Sound experience. Others can remain inside and stay warm like it is today. Stay warm in a blustery day. These vessels will also have high-level accessibility. There's a specification sheet available that describes all the ADA accommodations on the vessels. So while the vessel may look like a traditional Washington State ferry above decks, the magic is really below decks. We have a state-of-the-industry propulsion system consisting of Tier 4 diesel engines, supplemented by one of the largest battery energy storage systems in the industry in the world. There'll be 15.2 megawatt hours of energy storage on the vessel. That will allow the vessel to have 3 operating modes: diesel only, full battery mode, and hybrid electric mode. Rapid charging technology will allow ferries to charge every time they pull into the slip. I'm glad to show you in Seattle here where we plan to build out our electric infrastructure at the terminal. The vessel will have over, as I said, the largest battery installation in the industry. The size, 15.2 megawatts, is comparable to about 230 Chevy Bolts. The culmination of these efforts will be 5 new hybrid electric vessels that are expected to save a combined 240 million gallons of fuel over their 60-year service life. So in closing, I'd like to echo Steve's comments and thank the legislature and the governor for the fantastic support in moving our new ferry procurement process forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. I'd like to invite Representative Fye to say a few words.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here with this milestone. This work began with Senator Elias and I back in 2022 with the budget that implemented the Climate Commitment Act. And what we knew at that time was that an investment like this had as good a payback in terms of both financially for the state, but also in terms of carbon emission reductions and improved air quality as anything that we could do to address climate change, especially within state government. So the work started in 22. In 2023, when we got here for the legislative session, we found ourselves with a legislative structure that just wouldn't work in terms of being able to build the boat, because it was Washington only, and we'd already had tried that at distance, and that had not worked out. So in collaboration with the Senate and the House and the governor's office, we came up with this solution, which allows, I think, 2 important things, and that is to make sure that we can do this diesel-electric ferry, hybrid electric ferry, and we can do that in using outside the state of Washington companies to help do that boat building and accelerate our work in trying to restore more important and reliable service that will have long-lasting benefits for all the citizens of the state of Washington. So very pleased to be responsible, and it's a House bill, but don't kid yourself. when we work together to get this done, and we collaborated to make sure that we had a method that would be successful. So it's a pleasure to be here, and happy to answer any questions later, but I'll turn it over, I guess, to Senator Elias.
Thank you so much, Representative Fye, and thanks, Steve and Matt, for the great work. My name is Marco Elias. I chair the State Senate's Transportation Committee. I also get the privilege of representing the Edmonds and Mukilteo ferry terminals. So a lot of my constituents are impacted by our ferry system, and we're particularly excited to see emissions going down, noise going down, and a sustainable ferry fleet being built here right in front of our eyes. This is also a real testament to the power of the Climate Commitment Act. A landmark piece of legislation that is already in Washington State changing the trajectory of not just our transportation system, but our whole economy. I love watching the youngsters getting on this ferry right here and know that because of the Climate Commitment Act, our ferries are fare-free for youth. And in just a few years, they won't just be fare-free, but they'll be climate neutral as well. This is real progress for the people of our state and a real tangible benefit of the Climate Commitment Act, the investment in our communities. This is also, as Steve mentioned, I think there's been discussion about what is the best, fastest, cheapest way to get new vessels for our system. And it is clear that the bid that was just announced is the best and most viable path to get new ferries for our ferry system. You know, unlike when we buy new cars, there is no ferry dealership. There is no place where we can go look at these ferries and pick one off the line and put it into service. Every one of our vessels has to meet exacting requirements of our, not just Washington State Ferries, but our Coast Guard. So these are very custom designed, purpose-built vessels, and that's why getting it right by making sure that they're hybrid electric and moving through the process we're moving through in the next couple of years is so critically important. If we wanted to change and go back to the old dirty polluting diesel vessels, we'd have to start this whole program from scratch and delay ourselves from getting these vessels in service for the people that need them. I'm also excited this is part of a more comprehensive strategy of doubling down on world-class ferries. We're hiring new workers, we're greening our vessels, we're building new facilities like Coleman Dock. We want to make sure that we restore the dignity and restore the honor of our ferry system and give the people of Washington our iconic, beautiful ferry fleet into the long term. And this is one concrete milestone towards getting us there. So thanks for being here. Happy to answer any questions.
Hello. So we're happy to take questions if you want to have the... John?
I've got a whole bunch of number and technical things, so I think
maybe we could do that with Matt afterwards. How's that? Any other sort of broader questions? Nick?
Maybe you could talk a little bit more about why you'd have to start at square one to do a diesel ferry. Why can't we just use old designs or you know, I think, when was the last one built? 2017, 2018? Why not just go there?
The whole build of the ferries is embedded in state law. So the first delay is if we do not have authority legislatively to build a diesel ferry at this point in time. We'd have to go back and change the legislation. And Senator Elias and I, we crafted this very specifically working with stakeholders. It took the entire session in 2023 to reach an agreement. We'd have to start that all over again, and the whole design, the folks from WashDOT can talk about that. We'd be looking at a totally new process for designing the vessel. It's not just simply substituting the engines with this. It's more than that. But I'll let the folks from WashDOT talk about that.
Okay, great question. I'm glad to answer it because most passengers and the public don't get an opportunity to go below decks on our ferries. And you will be amazed. It doesn't matter which ferry you go on board. Below decks is a complex system of many major pieces of equipment all integrated together to work together. So every vessel starts with a design, and everything starts with an integrated propulsion system. The last ferries we took delivery of 2014 to 2018 were what we called diesel mechanical vessels. And the origin of those vessels was we leveraged federal funding, and the state procured the propulsion system and provided it to the shipyard. Well, those sources from early 2000s, 2010 timeframe have dried up. We could not replicate those vessels. We would have to select new equipment and have an integrator integrated into a new functioning system. So doing that would require us to step backwards, select a new propulsion integrator, select a new equipment, and essentially repeat the process that we are just completing now for the hybrid propulsion. And the overall impact between new legislative authority and the technical solution would set us back about 2 years. Thanks.
Anybody else? Yes.
I was just wondering how you might respond to growing conversation that we may need to privatize the state ferries to get the performance and accountability from Washington State Ferry leadership that we feel has been lacking over the last several years.
Yeah, I think if you go to British Columbia, you'll see a more public-private partnership, and what you see is fares are significantly higher, and the quality of service in terms of schedule and things like that are impacted by what is profitable. Our ferry system is like the rest of our transportation system. We operate it whether or not the boats are full. So in the late evening, in the middle of the day, just like our highways are available when they're not packed with traffic, our ferries are available. If you move to a for-profit model, every one of those runs needs to be profitable in order for the private sector to accomplish it. And if you look back at the history, Washington State did not operate these ferries until private businesses went under in the 1950s, and we acquired that fleet and now offer it as a public service. The final thing I'll say is our state constitution enshrines our ferry system as a part of our state highway system, and just like we don't turn over other parts of our highway system to private operators, this is a critical path. It's critical for folks who live on islands that can't access critical services without it. It's also important to our economic vitality to move freight and people and goods across the Puget Sound. So when we have vital public services, the public provides them, our Constitution enshrines it, and it gives residents of Washington the best possible service.
I think this is a question for the elected leaders. I know that, one of the reasons ferries ended up being expensive when building them in Washington State was an apprenticeship program requirement and also stronger environmental laws. I'm wondering if in opening up this bid across the country where there are laxer laws, labor and environmental, are we saying that those things